Assalamualaikum everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Ustaz. I'm your host Indra Sahib.
I'm Mubarak Shah.
Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Ustaz.
Coffee Ustaz.
Yeah, how are you Mubarak?
Alhamdulillah wa syukurillah.
Alhamdulillah. Congrats bro, congrats
Thank you.
Masya-Allah. Mabruk.
Number three. Alhamdulillah.
By the way, for those who don't know, our brother Mubarak and just what?
You also what?
Yeah.
You see, congrats me you also.
I'm earlier than you lah.
Yeah, you belated
by 1-2 weeks.
1-2 weeks, alhamdulillah. You got number 1, number 4.
Number 3 also. We are on the like we must have the same path lah.
Yeah.
Okay, inshallah we will embark on a very interesting topic today.
Yeah.
The topic on the law of Sharia.
Yeah.
Accordance to Islam and also we're going to touch on the topic of Sharia law in accordance with the modern world, with the modern life, of how we are living. Most people who are living their life with full of modern ideologies. How does Sharia law apply in that aspect?
In the 21st century, for Muslims,
But honestly, when we talk about Sharia law, right? For me, I just know about like the 5 pillars of Islam, right? On a very general basis, But for you, how?
I think for me, like when I think about what would people think about Sharia law, I think the first thing they will think about is what CNN and Fox News talk about, which is like,
Sharia
hudud, cutting off their hands and stuff like that,
That one is more to...
But that's what the people talk about a lot in the...
true.
In the media, Some people have a misunderstanding of like, what is Sharia law? It's actually like what you mentioned the 5 pillars and stuff.
And they think that Islam really truly represent
just that,
right? Yeah. And it can be quite misleading,
Very misleading.
Yeah.
Because it makes Muslims feel almost like barbaric like that, which the Sharia is not about that at all, right?
Yeah, true. So I think the best person to ask tonight is our beloved Ustaz, on this topic. And inshallah, he will enlighten and guide us along with this topic. And allow me to introduce our beloved Ustaz Al-Fadil Al-Mukarram Ustaz Anwar Hussein.
I love it how you call it Al-Fadil Al-Mukarram Ustaz. MashaAllah, I love it.
No, okay. There's this saying, our teachers, our great teachers, and our great scholars have this saying: you call noble people with a noble call, with a noble calling with a noble approach. So don't takkan lah I have to like oi. Of course. It's not applicable, right? And this is the aspect that I think we learn from our scholars and our teachers.
Thank you Indra. Don't laugh, I'm serious. Thank you for sharing that.
I feel very flattered. How are you, Ustaz? How are you?
Ustaz?
Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. Ahlan wa sahlan, Ustaz, for coming down.
Thank you very much, Annie, for making this happen, insyaAllah.
MashaAllah. I think we can go straight to the topic, Ustaz, if you don't mind. Because we don't want to go around the bush. We just want to go straight to the topic. I think a lot of people out there want to understand not just the definition of Sharia, right, or the meaning of Sharia, right, but what does it represent in our religion?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Wa arda an sahabati ajma'in. The first thing, before we enter into Sharia law, I will just like to remind that we are entering into the Muqaddimat of Imam Sanusi. And the reason why we enter into this topic is due to the fact that Imam Sanusi placed this subject at the beginning of this particular book. And the Muqaddimat of Imam Sanusi, Imam Sanusi actually he chose certain topics of importance to be discussed and to be understood in terms of his definition. And the first thing he mentioned is what is the meaning of Hukm Shari, which we are speaking today. That is speaking about the Sharia law. It is important for us when we are trying to understand a certain terminology, a certain concept. We have to go back to the definition. Without going back into the definition, we will make mistake in thinking. And this is one of the things in mantiq or in logic. that understanding in definitions is the key to avoid mistakes in thinking. So what Al-Imam Sanusi, what he did was in his Muqaddimat, he mentioned the definition of hukm syari. Before that, he speaks about what is the meaning of al-hukm. Because we have hukm syari. So al-hukm, he said, isbatu amrin aw nafyuhu. Yani when we speak about ruling, al-hukm, is about affirming a particular thing or negating it. This is also when it has relation to logic. When you affirm something, and when you come out with a proposition, whether it is true or false, whether it is true or it is false. So when we speak about ruling, we are speaking about something that has been affirmed. So al-hukmu syar'i, this is where he begins. What is the meaning of al-hukmu syar'i? The word syar'i comes from the word sharia. Sharia comes from the word shara, and shara is basically to legislate. So in Islam, we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a legislator, the one who revealed to prophets and messengers the rulings. So the definition of Sharia law is what he mentioned is al-khitab, is khitabullah al-muta'alliq bi af'alil mukallafin. That is the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is directed to the mukallafin. That is directed to the mukallafin. So this is the first part of the definition. So when we speak about Sharia law in Islam, we are speaking about revelation that comes from Allah. Revelation that comes of Allah that is directed to the mukallaf. Who are the mukallaf? Mukallaf has a few conditions. Number one, a person who has reached puberty. Number two, a person who is mentally stable, not a person who is insane. Number three, the religion of Islam has reached him. This is mukallaf. Number four, he possesses the senses to learn things. Meaning he's not a person, for example, who is born deaf and blind at the same time. A person he can be blind, but he is able to hear, he's a mukallaf. Or a person he is able to see, but he cannot, but is deaf, but he's a mukallaf, meaning he has the ability to seek knowledge or to learn any things. So these are the four conditions of mukallaf. A person who has reached puberty, a person who is mentally stable, meaning not insane, and the religion of Islam has reached him. And number four, he possesses the senses. So when we speak about Sharia law, khitabullah al-muta'alliq bi af'alil mukallafin, the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that are directed towards the actions of the mukallaf. Meaning this revelation of Allah has relation as relation with the actions of the mukallaf. So this is basically the first part of the definition. So we as Muslims, whenever we come across the word Sharia, whenever we come saying the word Sharia law, for example, this definition must be at the back of our mind. So we are speaking about revelation that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has relationship with the actions of the mukallaf. The mukallaf goes back to the four condition. If you can find in the person who is not anymore mukallaf, Sharia law is not applicable to him. A person who is insane, for example, the Sharia law is not applicable to him. You don't tell this person it's wajib for you to perform the 5 times prayers. You don't tell this person to fast in the month of Ramadan. Likewise, a child who has not reached puberty, it is not obligatory yet, but it is obligatory upon the parents to command them to perform those obligations, but it has not been obligated yet. Likewise, if you have a person, for example, who live in the jungle, that the religion of Islam has not reached that person, and he worship idols and all these things. The rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also has no relationship with this particular person. So this is the thing about Islam. So we have to understand what is the meaning of mukallaf. We have to understand what is the meaning of khitabullah. What is this khitab? These words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we say this revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has relation with the actions of the mukallaf. So this is the first part of the definition. The second part of the definition speaks about the types of revelation. The types of revelation that has relationship with the actions of the mukallaf. So there are three. As what Imam Sanusi and he mentioned, number one, and he said talaban, yani in terms of talab, in terms of commandment. It's the revelation that Allah reveals to prophets and messengers. They come in the form of commandments, meaning to do what are the do's and what are the don'ts. Just like Allah said, what you call it, prayers is compulsory. Using the siwak is sunnah. Doing any adultery is haram. And what you call it, performing any things that is makruh. So we have the do's and the don't. This is point number one. And then number two, we have what is called as takhir. Yani Allah give us the choice, and whether you want to do or you do not want to do. This in Islam, and we call it the mubah. And then number three is the implementation, the wada. Yani how do you implement the do's and the don'ts? How do you implement the mubah? So this comes under the implementation. So the definition of Sharia consists of these two parts. Number one, khitabullah, that is the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we as Muslims, we regard every revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has relationship with af'alil mukallafin, with the actions of the mukallaf, and those revelation is divided into these three parts. This is what we meant by Sharia law. So Sharia law is not only speaking about cutting a people's hand, and that's what you mentioned. What nowadays people are, when they heard any Sharia law, they thought that the Muslims are going to take over the land, that these people are going to do jihad or certain things, But we as Muslims, we are living by the Sharia law by right 24/7, because every action of a Muslim has a relationship with the Sharia law. Every action.
Yes.
For example, even if a person is asking, what is the ruling of eating and drinking? Eating and drinking, for example, eating and drinking, is there a relationship with the Sharia law? Does the Sharia law address eating and drinking? Yes. The Sharia law address eating and drinking. Allah said in the Quran, kulu washrabu. Yani eat and drink. The hukum is mubah.
Yes.
Mubah. Yani this is part of the Sharia law. This is takhir. Allah give you the choice. The choice. Yani whether you want to eat or you do not want to eat. What is wajib for you is to eat from the halal. This comes from the talab.
Yes.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to eat kulu min tayyibati ma razaqnakum. Yani eat from the good things. That is from the wajib. And then also we have in terms of the implementation. For example, Allah make prayers compulsory for us. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in the conditions. Yani you want to perform any Zuhur prayers, you must make sure that the time of Zuhur has come. So this is wada. This is how you implement the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So basically the knowledge of fiqh, it encompasses these elements. So usually when we study usulul fiqh, then we study in deeper meaning, what is the meaning of the Sharia law. But as a minimum requirement for Muslims today to understand, it is important for us to understand this definition. So Al-Imam Sanusi, the first thing he brings forth, tells us what is the meaning of al-hukm shari. So this is the first thing where he speaks about.
It's very interesting that when in the aspect of hukum syar'i, I think in the kitab of Imam Sanusi al-Muqaddimat, he also elaborate on the aspect of the law that is being command and even being negate, right? Is divided into three layers, right? Which is syar'i, wa'adi, wa'aqli. Well, I think only for tonight we will only cover on the syar'i aspect, but it's very interesting here that it encompasses a lot more than just Sharia here. That's what I'm trying to.
There's like more than just you're talking about the laws and commandments. Yeah. There's like the adi and the akili.
Yes, there's
part
more
of the
deeper aspect from it, But which is very interesting here that our scholars formulate this kind of.
He mentioned that there are three things. One is shari, the other one is adi, the other one is akli. Then he will elaborate in each of these. I will just like to mention this, that as a Muslim, it is very important and very crucial for us to differentiate between hukum al-shari'i, hukum al-adi, and hukum al-aqli.
Yes.
Of course, when it comes to hukum al-adi and aqli, we will speak about it. But there must be a differentiation. We must be able to differentiate, because otherwise things will be jumbled up. And this is what usually occurs. So for students any of knowledge, and we have to have a strong any foundation in this, especially when we are learning aqidah, when we are learning fiqh, for example, when we are learning tasawwuf, all these things and will be mentioned again and again. So not having understood any of these definitions and understood these definitions, this is the thing that can confuse and can make things muddle up.
Can you give us an example, Ustaz, of how they can get confused with this kind of thing?
Okay, for example, we say for example prayers is wajib. Prayers is wajib. What wajib is this was we were speaking about? We say this is wajib shari. Wajib in the sense from the sharia. And then it becomes to say for example 2 + 2 equals to 4. This is also wajib. Is this any wajib any shari? No, and this is not any wajib shari. This is wajib aqli. This is any the rational laws. Rational laws and it cannot change. Rational laws they cannot change. When we speak about the laws of Sharia, it has relationship with the revelation that comes from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Mathematics is a good example of rational laws. Mathematics. And then we have, for example, physics. Physics is more empirical laws. It is based on experimentation, and it is based on repetition. For example, any scientists, when they want to find out about a certain chemical, how it gives any effect, and for example, they will do any experimentation. They come with the conclusion. This is based on the empirical laws, and empirical laws can change because it is based on repetition. So when there is a difference when we say, for example, wajib syar'i, wajib aqli, and wajib adi, so it's not the same. So when we say, for example, the karamah of awliya, meaning the miracles of the saints, is wajib adi. It is against this hukmul adi. It is mustahil adi. It is impossible, but that impossibility is not based on rational laws, but it is based on empirical laws. So those for example who is unable to differentiate wajib adi and wajib aqli, when they speak about, for example, miracles of the saints, they equate the miracles of the saints as wajib aqli, which is not correct. Because if you equate miracles of the awliya as wajib aqli, meaning they cannot they are something that cannot change.
Definitely it shows that they have the wrong approach, Ustaz. When they implement the wrong that's not referring back to the miracle of the saints, and they go back to the wajib aqli, right? To the aqli part, I think they have the wrong version.
They say mustahil aqli. Mustahil aqli meaning it cannot occur. When you say mustahil aqli, meaning it cannot occur. When it comes into rational laws, mustahil aqli meaning something that cannot accept existence at all. Something that cannot accept any existence at all. For example, an example of mustahil aqli, we say something is moving and not moving at the same time. This is mustahil aqli. This is mustahil aqli, meaning it cannot be in existence at all. Something is either moving or not moving, but you cannot be saying it moves and it does not move at the same time. These are contradictions. You cannot be saying this cup is in existence and non-existence at the same time. This is mustahil aqli. But when it comes to the miracles of the awliya, we say this mustahil adi. What is the meaning of mustahil adi? Mustahil adi has a relationship with repetitions. So, for example, Nabi Musa alayhi salam, he has the stick. This is a mu'jizat. So the stick, normally people do not see stick and it can turn into snake.
Yes.
But someone comes into the room and throws a stick, and suddenly the stick turn into a snake. We say this is mustahil adi, meaning adatan, this is impossible. Because usually we never see this. We see a stick as a stick. But suddenly a stick and it can become a snake. So when it comes into the miracles of the saints or miracles of the prophets, they are in the hukmul adi and not in hukmul aqli. So those who reject for example the miracles of the saints or miracle of the prophets, they equate mustahil adi and mustahil aqli to be the same. So they got jumbled up in this, and this is dangerous because it can lead to kufr. It can lead to kufr because if a person negate karamatul awliya is kufr. A person negate the miracles of the prophets is kufr. And there are people who says that you cannot believe in miracles because miracles is against any science. This is another thing.
Yeah.
Inshallah, I think for this topic, right, on the Adi and Akli, definitely we will enter on a separate basis.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
But the thing is, I want to, to sum up this, discussion on the Sharia, Adi, or Akli. From all these three, Ustaz, as a seeker of knowledge, can we just straight away jump into Akli first before Shari'i? You know, I mean, there might be question from commoners out there. They think, oh, my intellect is so high, I can just go straight to understand it from the Akli perspective rather than Shari'i.
No, the correct methodology is to understand the Sharia first. Is to understand the Sharia. Is to understand Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala.
The commandments, everything.
We are now speaking about, for example, who is the one who brought us into existence and what are his commandments. All these are related to Shari. So that is why Al-Imam Sanusi, he placed Hukum Shari before Hukum Akli and Hukum Adi. Because the first thing he wants to tell us that it is important for every Muslim to understand the commandments. The commandments from Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala that has relationship with the things that we do.
Yeah.
Because Sharia law has relationship with all of our actions. All of our actions, whether it is actions that is halal or haram. Everything is encompassed by the Sharia. And this is the beauty of Islam in reality.
And it doesn't matter when, Ustaz, any time, any age, any community is applicable.
Even when people are sleeping.
Yeah.
Even when people are sleeping, it has a relationship with the law of Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. So these are the things. Sometimes sleeping can become makruh. For example, if a person sleeps in a state of janaba, sometimes he sleeps and it can become a sunnah. And when a person observe the sunnah before sleeping, and all these things. Even when you are sleeping, imagine that there are Sharia, what you call it, has relationship with Sharia. So this is the beauty of Islam. This is where when our scholars mentioned that the religion of Islam encompasses all aspects of life. So how are we able to understand this when we understand the definition of al-hukm al-shari? So this is basically the meaning of the Sharia law. So I hope viewers that are listening is able to understand basically the meaning of the definition.
One of the things that when you talk about Sharia law, most of it, especially now in our time, is that people will come and think that Sharia is backward, compared to the modern perspective, modern times, modern advancement of time and stuff like that. What do we say to in kind of situations? Like where they say, oh, you follow the Sharia, you are backward.
But but sorry, but I just want to ask you, but where do they have that source from? How does that perspective come into place?
I think, I don't know. I mean, definitely for sure is what they've been watching, their environment, what they've been listening,
culture,
watching TV,
maybe the culture that they are into.
Yeah, I mean, the TV is one of the best educators we have nowadays.
For them lah. But I think it's an interesting thing that we can discuss here. Going back to just now, you said that they say that Sharia law is backwards.
Yeah.
But where do they get that from?
Yeah.
Right? Where do they justify that? That's a important thing also, no?
Yeah.
It is important. I think we have to look into history, and in order for us to get those answers, because I think what is happening now in the 21st century, it is the result of centuries of history and that events that happened in history and that led to what it is now. I believe it is important for Muslims, and it is within the obligations for a Muslim to learn in history. And history in Islam is wajib. Learning history is compulsory. Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala mentioned fasiru fil ardi fanduru kayfa kana aqibatul ladina min qablikum. Yani walk on the face of this earth and see what are the retribution of those who came before you. So here our scholars mentioned that learning history is important. Why? If you go back into history, for example, you see the Arabs before the coming of Islam, they were backward, and in a sense, because most of them are unlettered people. This is what the Quran speaks. وَالَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِنْهُمْ. Allah sent the Prophet ﷺ to a community of unlettered people. Correct or not? So what do you expect from a community that is unlettered, meaning they do not possess a great civilization? So if you compare the Arabs and the Romans and the Persians and last time, the Romans and the Persians are much more civilized than the Arabs, because the Arabs are tribal, and they are unlettered. They do not have a strong foundation in education and so on and so forth. So imagine our Prophet ﷺ, when he was born in this community, a community that is seen as backward in those times, in comparison to the Romans and to the Persian. The first verse that Allah gave to the Prophet ﷺ is about education. It's about reading. It's about the importance of read and write. Correct? Iqra bismi rabbikal ladhi khalaq khalaqal insana min alaq. So the Muslims, they knew the importance of education. They knew the importance of reading and writing. So imagine in the course of 23 years, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, from the time he received any revelation until he passed away, the Muslims were able to understand the Sharia, reflect upon the teachings of Islam, and implement Islam in daily lives, and they are able to build a great civilization. What happened after that? The Persian Empire fell, the Roman Empire fell, and the Muslims built a much greater civilization that have never existed in the past. So we ask this question: how come the Arabs from a situation where they are considered to be unlettered or backward in every aspect of technology at that time, in a span of 23 years, 30 years, 40 years during the time in the Khulafa al-Rashidin, they are the ones who has built a great civilization. So what is the thing that gave them, that make them, give them this ability that they are able to build such a great civilizations, and they are able to excel in every aspect of technology and knowledge and science? So the answer is Islam. So if a person says that, if you hold on to the Sharia and you are backward, look back at the history. Look at those who learn the Sharia, who practice the Sharia holistically, not taking here and there. Practice them holistically. Look at how they are successful in every aspect of civilization. And we look at the Islamic civilization, and it is not about 10, 20 years, but it is centuries. Wow. The first 100 years the Islamic civilization is at the peak. For example, during the time of Banu Umayyah, Islam reached in Spain. The whole of Spain is under Islamic rule. So imagine from the west all the way from Spain towards further in near to India, and it reached some places in China. So the Islamic empire is at the greatest, and people from all over the world is learning from the Muslims. When it comes to the medicine, knowledge of medicine, knowledge of astronomy, knowledge of science. And then do not forget, for example, Baitul Hikmah was established in Baghdad. When Baitul Hikmah was established in Baghdad, that was the center of the world for science and technology. And we find many scholars, like Khawarizmi, for example, he established algebra. Algebra, mathematics that we are learning today. The Muslims prospered in the fields of mathematics. Astronomy, don't say, because Muslims have all the while written many books in astronomy, and then in medicine, and we have people like Ibn Sina, and then we can speak about a lot of things, and even in philosophy, and we have people like Al-Imam Ghazali and Razi, and we have in every you will find in every aspect of knowledge, and you have giants within the Ummah, those Muslims who look at Islam holistically and able to explain things, to come out with inventions and so on and so forth. So this is in a time where the West is still in dark ages. Let us not forget this, because when you go back into the history and you look at the West, where is the West when the Muslims were prospered during this time? We are here and we are speaking about more than 1,000 years ago. It comes before the Renaissance. It comes before the Enlightenment. The Muslims were prospered. The Muslims were living in civilizations where their hospitals, the first universities were built by the Muslims, and before the universities in the West were built, established. So to say that holding on to the Sharia means that you are backward in science or in technology, it shows any that person doesn't understand in history. Number one, doesn't understand what is the meaning of Sharia law. Doesn't understand what is the meaning of Sharia law. So that is why we Muslims, and if we do not study any our history, we might be confused. We might be confused, and we might fall into this perception that nowadays any people are having, because people don't see this because of the weakness of the Muslims today. People don't see the beauty of Islam as how it was in the past.
One of the interesting things I realized also, like all of these great people who developed fields knowledge of in astronomy, science, and all kind of stuff. They did it not because of they did it because they wanted to understand Allah's creation even greater. It wasn't just because I wanted to do it or I wanted for fun, just want to find out. It was a desire to know more, desire to find out how grand and majestic this entire world is, I think that is one of the key parts.
I have a discussion here, maybe we can open. Also, just now when Barak relate that some Muslims, they think that, or even those who, individuals that think that following the Sharia law is like a kind of backward. Is it something that you think, Barak, they are quite ashamed of practicing the Sharia law? Maybe for some people, I knew some individuals out there, they're kind of ashamed of the religion itself. Oh, I have to wear like this. I have to pray like this. Or I have to follow this certain lifestyle. I have to fast during Ramadan. That is Sharia law, right? So, because of that, they are kind of like macam, I say in a very layman term, like paiseh a bit, like ashamed.
I get what you mean.
Do you think it's based on that?
I've seen these people before, but I think most of these guys definitely have an inferiority complex.
In what way, Barak?
They feel as though Islam is lesser than whatever is being projected today as ideal people. They feel like being Muslim will bring you behind the masses, but then they don't realize what Ustaz was sharing. We if you go way back, we were always at the forefront, and because these people were always there. And the problem is, whatever there was there was a period where we were not at the forefront anymore. So there's been a gap, you see. So they feel
Big
this gap also. That was before. What now? You guys still not doing anything. That's why somehow they feel.
Really,
I think so also. But then the thing is, the problem also
from the ground.
But the thing I think they don't realize most of the time is that there is more to the past. There is the present, and how even in the present the Sharia has can serve them.
And this brings me to the next question, Ustaz. After we have laid out this foundation on Sharia law, it's not something that is backward. It's something that moving forward is a progress to an individual. So I just want to ask this question, Ustaz. With those generation back then, when they holistically practice Islam, 100% or in fact more than 100% of their own effort, right? Is that the reason why that Allah grant them nobility?
Yeah, this is very important. I wanted to speak about this because Barak mentioned this just now. This is a very important thing, and for every Muslim to be aware of. Last time, if we compare, for example, what is the difference then? The scholars of the past and the present and the world that we are living in today. You see, the people of the past, the Sahaba, for example, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, the first generations of Muslim, the reason they study science, the reason where they enter into all fields of knowledge is because of the Quran. Because when they go back into the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about science. Correct or not? What did Allah say? أَفَلَا يَنْزُرُونَ إِلَى الْإِبِلِ كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ. So Allah posed a question. Do you not ponder upon the camel how it is created? So the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, the way how they learn the Quran, they learn 5 verse by 5 verse. So they do not only learn the Quran as what we are learning today. They do not only learn fiqh as what we are learning, how we are learning today. The way they learn fiqh is they memorize 5 verse and then they implement. So they will not go to the next 5 verse before implementation.
MashaAllah.
So if they come across this verse, for example, if this verse were revealed to the Prophet ﷺ today they will learn. So they will make sure that they understand why it was sent, and what is the meaning of this particular verse, and what is the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how to practice it. So everything they will do it before they move on into the next verse. So this is how they look at the Quran, meaning in each and every verse they go one by one, and they make sure that they implement. They implement. So imagine just one verse. Afala yanzuruna ila al-ibili kayfa khuliqat. What they will do? They will study about the camel. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention camel in the first place? Point number one. Then Allah say, kayfa khuliqat. Do you not know how the camel is created? Then they will have to learn. They look at the body of the camel. They look at the specialties of the camel. And subhanallah, and you find that the camel is ajib.
Yeah.
The camel, if you is one of the animals that can store water. Ajib. You have an animal that is really designed for the desert.
Yeah.
You cannot bring a cow for example to cross the desert.
Yeah.
but camel can survive.
Yeah, the camel can survive.
Camel can survive. Even though without meaning in desert where there is no water, because camel can store water.
Yeah.
And then subhanallah, speaking about the eyelashes, speaking about the
hoofs.
Every single part of the camel is amazing.
Functional.
Meaning as though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the camel as the the animal of the desert.
Yeah.
Tamam. Likewise, Allah mentioned it in the Quran, and for example, Inna fi khalqis samawati wal ardi wa ikhtilafil layli wan nahari la ayatin li ulil albab. Allah speaks about the coming of night and day. The Muslims when they first read this particular verse, so how they understood is Allah is speaking about night and day. So how do we implement this verse? We have to learn about how any night and day comes. Okay, we do not know how night and day comes. We have to learn. So now it becomes a new knowledge. This is the knowledge of astronomy. So the Muslims were the the ones
pioneers of
the pioneers, and we can say the study about the movement of the earth. About the solar system, about the stars and so on. They invented all these scopes that they are able to look at a certain extent, and so on and so forth. But so the motivation behind them to study, to enter into the sciences is not because of the dunya.
Yeah.
It's not because one day, I want to become a professor so that my salary will be such and such.
Yeah.
Everything about the dunya.
Yeah.
They don't view any education as something that for worldly matters.
Yeah.
But they enter into this science. They enter into this when they recite in the Quran, and they found out that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing. Allah is speaking about how human beings are created in the womb of their mothers. That led into people studying about this phenomenon. And so on and so forth. We can speak about medicine. The Quran speak about medicine. The Quran speak about astronomy. The Quran speak about many aspects of the sciences. So this is the motivation behind the Muslims in the past.
It was to worship Allah.
Yes, it is to understand the Quran. It is to understand the Quran, and the Quran, understanding of the Quran is one of the reasons that a person can become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because at the end of the day, the purpose in life, as we mentioned in our last episode, is to attain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is becoming the Khalifa, and likewise in terms of ibadah, in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they have those objectives in life at the back of their minds. They study the Quran, and they implement the Quran, and they establish schools and universities for that cause. So if the motivation of the Muslim is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is where the nusrah of Allah comes. The help of Allah is with the Muslims, as long as the Muslims is with Allah. So we have this saying. But the moment you study any science, or you study whatever this knowledges, not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you are cut off from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, this is the thing that Muslims will attain any barakah and blessing as long as there is a connection with whatever we are doing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is one of the main difference between, we can say, many people, Muslims who are living in this era, in comparison to the past. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open for us the doors of the dunya. We find how they are able to build all these great civilizations, and they prosper in many aspects of this knowledge.
I think to compare something very interesting that we want to bring up, because like the Muslim scientists, or whatever you want to call them, were always projecting out of the desire to please Allah. While in today, we see definitely advancement in technology, way beyond whatever we could have from the past, you know, like for example, you know, like yes, the Muslims created the foundation blocks, but today we have surpassed technology in a way that I think people back then could never imagine, you know. So but today the motivation, that motivation and the reason of why they do it is a whole different meaning, you know. Like there's somewhat like a ethical thing is different, you know, like our motivation, like the motivation should always be to please God and stuff like that, you know. And while today the motivation is purely, I think, if you want to,
it's mixed,
materialistic.
Materialistic is materialism, you know, whatever, like, you know, it's just to whatever reason, I think
partially they did it for God, but partially also they have some.
I mean, like if you look at technology today, and like the motivations of technology, how people advance today and all that kind of stuff, it's always been motivated. The motivation for the advancement of technology is not centered around God.
Yes,
right. It's centered about individualism and you know this modernist perspective. That's why, like, I think, come back to your question lah, and like why they feel backward, because the advancements today doesn't link back to God. What you know, it links back to something else. Like, what is this something else in your perspective? Like, what is this?
You see, this also has to do with history. In the West, and for example, there is a transition that occurs in the 16th century, for example. People like Francis Bacon, the figures of the figures of modernism and the Enlightenment and the thinkers like John Locke, Francis Bacon, René Descartes. So during their time, there is a transition in Europe where people what you could start living any religion, because they felt that religion. At that time in the West, of course, dominantly was Christianity. So they felt that all this based on blind faith, and we are unable to establish any truth just by having any blind faith. So we have to live this blind faith, and we have to go back to reason to our intellectual capacity, because this is the thing that is special in us, that we can decide for ourselves what is true and what is false. So the transition from believing in God to believing in the individual. So this is the transition. This is important for us to take note, because whatever technology and science that is advanced in this era has a relationship with many of this historical fact that occurred, what you call it, in the 16th century, during the time of those thinkers, especially because they got books and so on and so forth. So the transition occurs from what they call it as blind faith to reason. So they believe that if human beings return to reason and put aside their superstition, to them having belief in some God, it's just like a superstition that is not based on reasoning and rationality. So we have to put that aside.
Proof of evidences.
Put your superstition aside, and then you have to be focused and to use your intellect, your reason,
God of reason.
So they have this transition, and then by the coming of Newton, for example, in the field of physics. The coming of a few enlightenment,
Galileo, and all this kind of
Galileo, a few enlightenment and thinkers that came, and Europe slowly prospered in terms of technology, in terms of science. They work with what the Muslims have achieved in the past. They continue. They continue with what the Muslims have achieved, and do not forget that many of the European thinkers benefited from the Muslims. Benefited from the Muslim civilization. Because of the encounter of the Crusades. For example, there is this encounter with the Muslims. They found out that the Muslims have built universities. They found out the Muslims have built hospitals and all these things. So they started building universities in Europe. And if you look at the date, the oldest universities in Europe, and you find that it comes much later than what you call it, the Muslim civilization. So they no doubt they benefited a lot from they benefited a lot for the Muslims, but also we cannot forget that they put in a lot of effort to in the advancement of science and technology, without any doubt. They are given that credit, and they work hard, and they establish factories. They do a lot of experimentation and inventions, and then come the industrial revolution. comes any the industrial revolution and they become any wealthier. They are able to produce many things and so on and so forth. And then in terms of military, then comes any the age of colonization, comes any the British Empire and colonization any of the Muslim lands and so on and so on and so forth. So the modern thinkers, the modernists, they are convinced that it is because of reason that they so-called prosper in this science and technology. It's because of the transition, because they were saying if we go back into superstition and we do not hold on to reason, we might not reach what we have today. So this philosophy, what you call it, is brought over the centuries until today. But sadly Muslims are influenced by this philosophy. This philosophy says that in order for you to prosper in science and technology, you have to put aside your superstition. What they meant in superstition is basically your
Sharia,
your belief in so-called like that there is a God, or
your ethics,
based on the revelation.
They
to them any revelation is not based on rationality. It is all based on superstition and blind faith. But you have to go back to reason and rationality, and you have to look things rationally rather than you look at things based on superstition and all these things. So they believe that the success of the West in terms of science and technology is because of reason. It's because basically this concept of reason. They call it the enlightenment project. So what is happening today is basically this influence is still dominant. Dominant whether you live in the East or do you live in the West. So Muslims are caught up in this. The way I look at it, Muslims are caught up in this. And if they do not have any religious background, or they do not study any religion, Islam properly, and they are more influence in the Western perspective into things, they might be influenced by so many of these ideas. That in order for you to advance, to progress, they use the word progress. You have to go back into reason, and then you must be wary of your superstition. You should not go deeper into your religion, because the more deeper you go into religion, and the more you be further away from reason, and the more you further away from reason, you are further away from science technology. That's why you are backward. So this is basically basically the modernist way of viewing things. So many Muslims today, they are influenced by the modernist ideas. Today we have a term that is called Islamic modernism. It is a weird thing, but it is a mixture of modernism and Islam. 100 years ago, people like Muhammad Abdul and some people in Egypt, and they are influenced by this modernist transition. So they decided to look into this modernism and enlightenment project, and how to apply this in the Islamic Sharia.
Can it coexist, Ustaz? Modernism, can this coexist? Modernism and the traditional Islamic faith, can this coexist?
Of course, there is a contradiction, because you see, as what we mentioned, the initial modernist idea is that they view believing in a particular God, or believing in a particular religion, it is non-rational. It is non-rational. But some modernists say you can have a religion, meaning you can have a religion, but the ultimate thing is that you must be rational. They do not view that when you believe in a particular religion, and that you can be a person who is rational and fully. So there is this contradiction. There is this contradiction. But the beauty of Islam, and what we have to understand, what the beauty of Islam, there is no contradiction between revelation and rationality. There is no contradiction. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to us the Sharia, the rulings and the system of belief, and at the same time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us with the intellect. The one who revealed any religion of Islam is the same one who created the intellect in human beings. So there is no contradiction between rationality and revelation. This is the beauty in Islam, meaning in every single tenet of faith, we can prove it rationally. For example, we can speak about the existence of Allah rationally, as what we mentioned in our previous podcast. We say that it is impossible that something that is contingent to be in existence without the originator. it is impossible. There is the originator who is pre-eternal, must be pre-eternal, because if he's not pre-eternal, it will be this infinite regression. Then you keep on asking, and who is the one who created this God? Who is the one who created this God? So God has to be eternal. This is established rationally. So we can speak about the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can speak oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why God must be necessarily one. Why he cannot be more than one. We can speak about his dissimilarity with the creation. We can speak about that he is not in need of anything. We can speak about the attributes that he possesses any power, because all is in the universe and he is the effects of his power. Meaning, what I'm trying to say is that all of the tenets of faith in Islam has no contradiction with rationality. Ahkamul aql. That is where this the next one when today we are hukum syari. The next of hukum al-aql is rationality. This is the problem of the modernists, because they want to hold on to rationality, but they go against any rationality when it comes into matters that has relation with the originator, with God, the one who created the universe, and so on and so forth. So the Muslims are the one, what you call it, that there is no contradiction between revelation and with rationality. So that is why it is important in Aqidah, we study hukum syari, hukum aqli. Then we see whether is there a contradiction between Islam and the laws of rational laws, and then the empirical laws. Tamam. Islam addresses all this in the Quran. In the Quran, Allah speaks about ahkamul aql. The Quran speaks about intellect, ulul albab. The Quran speaks about hukum al-adi. The Quran speaks about miracles, and so on and so forth.
It's very interesting that, since we are in this discussion on the topic of modernism and also the Islamic faith, maybe I also open this discussion to Mubarak. I find it very like I can't grasp the logic if a person is 50% modernism and also 50% traditionalist. Yeah, that's the word. I can't grasp the logic to that, Barak. Have you encountered this kind of...
For sure, man. I mean, I think, to be honest, there's something that I myself also, is continuously always trying to, purify that understanding, because as we grow up, in this 21st century, we cannot really filter out whatever we learn. Sometimes, some way or another, something comes in,
Yeah.
So in our process of relearning the deen, there's so many things that we have to correct and understand, And there's some people who are far worse than us, in the sense that they have never learned the deen at all in their whole life, and then and then they have been so-called influenced.
But definitely, there's the line to be drawn, right? Yeah, no doubt you.
But what I'm trying to say is, it's impossible for it to you to consciously believe in two things at one time.
Yeah, correct.
That's what I'm trying to say. If you it's normal for a person to have these contradictions, but as soon as you get this contradiction, you must progress lah, kan?
Yeah,
but then you cannot believe that two things, for example, Islam has an answer for everything, but Islam is irrational. It doesn't make sense for you to have that kind of belief at the same time.
The reason why I question this, Ustaz, because it goes back to the term where our scholars mainly use. I think I get Ustaz to elaborate further, which is Abdiddani la yajtami'an, which is two things that opposing cannot be grouped together. So from what I learned, I think that is the basis of all ideologies. You cannot mix best of both worlds, right? What's your take on this?
There's no best in that world also.
You see some scholars, and when they use the term Islamic modernism, what they meant is that Islam in the modern world.
Okay.
You see, we in Islam, for example, the Quran, and they mention Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati. Today we have perfected in your religion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that the religion of Islam is perfect, and no matter in what age you are in, whether you are in the 21st century or in what age you are in, Islam is applicable to all age and all time. So Islam addresses everything. Everything that human beings are facing in this modern world can be addressed by Islam. And if we go back to the to the evidences in Islam, and he can give any proper explanation. Of course, and this goes back into the expertise to the ulama, who are trained in this field. So, but you see, the problem is that when people believe that Islam is backward, or Islam that is not compatible with the 21st century, this is the problem. It shows that this particular person is influenced with the philosophy of modernism. Modernism, and he is influenced with the Western philosophy of modernism. That the more that religion is irrational. That you have to go back into reason in order for you to understand what is best for you in the 21st century, rather than you go back into the Sharia, or you go back into the revelation, and that's what we mentioned in so that kind of Islamic modernism, and they also use this term in Islamic modernism to mean that they say that we are modern Muslim, but what they meant is that my Islam is different. I interpret Islam based on what I think, based on my reasoning.
But in that manner, Ustaz, sorry to interject there, but in that manner, aren't they like changing or
they are changing,
revising the laws of Islam itself?
They are changing. For example, and you find people, some people saying, for example, the wearing of the hijab, for example, it's not applicable in the 21st century. We are living in the modern world and all these things. Maybe last time people are hot in the desert and they have to cover for example, and some people, for example, say that I think we can drink liquor. What's wrong with drinking liquor? Maybe last time it's like that, but today we have to look at our times, and they go into an extent which they believe that it's all go back to reasoning. See, this is the similarity, but they claim themselves as Muslim. They say, I'm a Muslim and I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I believe in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but I believe that there are certain rulings in Islam is not compatible with the 21st century, because I go back to my reasoning. So you find some people, for example, and he says that certain things in Islam, and it has to be abolished. That even in some people saying that we should not be following the hadith anymore, because all this
but can that be done, Ustaz?
What's that?
Can that approach be done in Islam?
No, of course not.
No,
because you see, Islam.
Then there's definitely a clear contradiction.
Contradiction of the Quran, contradiction of the Hadith. There are certain things that make people apostates. And for example, like certain established rulings in the Quran, you cannot be saying, for example, prayer is not compulsory for me. Then this apostasy. This apostasy. There are certain things in the Quran is ijma. There are consensus amongst the ulama that there is a line, meaning when we say that we believe in Allah, believe in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we believe holistically. We enter into the religion totally. That we believe in the commandments and we believe in the prohibitions as prohibitions. But once you saying the commandments which there is a consensus amongst the ulama to be something that you contest or you do not want, like for example the 5 time daily prayers. You say, I don't want to pray. Pray is not wajib upon me anymore.
I want to be different.
What is important is intention, that you are Muslim, that khalas.
Another good one.
For example, some people are even saying that what is important for me is just to believe in the existence of Allah. But everything they will do, and so this is the thing, and it make people an apostate in reality. So that is why Islam plays what you call in terms of aqidah. What are the things that is compulsory upon Muslims to believe? What are the things that can lead into apostasy? Everything is laid in Islam.
It seems that this Sharia law is it's like a central role for a life of a Muslim.
It is the guide. It is the guide. So this guide is based on revelation. It is based on revelation. So this revelation comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is telling us how to lead our lives in terms of our belief, in terms of our actions, in terms of our character. So everything has a relation with the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
If you allow me, Ustaz, since we are going to wrap it up on this discussion, but I believe this discussion also we can have more time to elaborate further on other stuff. But the thing is, if you allow me, Ustaz, what we learn from Islam, the word Islam itself, right? Logatan wa istilahan, in terms of the language and also the istilah of Islam, is al-istislam an ahkam syari'iyah. It means to surrender to the to the will of the law of Sharia.
Yeah.
It means to be a Muslim, we have to surrender to the law of Sharia.
Yeah. That is difficult for some people.
It seems that since we are talking about this modernism ideology in this current episode, it seems that they can't seem to surrender themselves to the ahkam of Sharia, Ustaz.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
in that
speaking about
aspect.
Muslims, of course, for non-Muslims, and they don't believe what you call it in Islam. But for Muslims who are influenced with this philosophy philosophy of modernism, they have constraints on certain issues. So they look at Islam and they use their reasoning. They depend on their reasoning and reread. You know, like nowadays, some people
Reinterpret.
So some people are carrying the slogan that we have to reinterpret in the Quran.
That can be very misleading, Ustaz.
We have to reread our Turas. There are people nowadays, and I heard they say you cannot depend on the Turas at all. We have to throw the Turas in the garbage bin.
Na'udzubillah.
This rampant. Na'udzubillah min zalik. You have to throw the Islamic tradition in the garbage bin, because all is in the past. We are living now, you know. So what is the problem with these people? Because they are deluded by themselves. They see themselves as people who are able to think, or who are progressive. They use the word progressive, for example. That they are the people of rationality, the people of progress.
Yeah.
So they will look at the Islamic rulings and reread the Quran based on their interpretation, on what they feel that Islam has to be,
on their motivations.
Yes, Islam has to be on their guidelines, because they have seen what is the best for Islam to be in the time that they are in. So they might be people who are thinking they are the mujtahid, or they are the people who are progressive in that sense. But they do not know by going against certain fundamentals in Islam that can lead to apostasy, that can lead to contradictions in Islam, as what you mentioned. You are not centering yourself into Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you want the religion to surrender to you. And this is one of the tricks of shaitan. Because one of the tricks of shaitan is to make what you call it yourself as the one who possess the ultimate will, the ultimate will to things. And that is again the influence of modernism, because the modernism they have this notion where they call it the individualism. Individualism, and they believe in the importance of that individual, that individual is independent, that you are not in need of any revelation or anything. What is important is that you have the intellect, so you can determine for yourself what you want. So you should not be binded or surrender to anything else. You should not be surrendering. That is any weakness. But you should let other things surrender to you. So can you see this? So this is the problem. So again, it goes back to the nafs at the end of the day.
Yes.
It goes back into the nafs. That's why I mentioned it's difficult for some people. Because difficult for people to go against the desire. That is why in the Quran, Allah says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. One of the big aspects in Islam is to go against the nafs. وَإِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَعَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ. That the nature of the nafs of human beings is ammara. That it calls you to do things that are evil, that are sinful. But people are deluded, and because of their ignorance, they do not learn any about Islam. They are deluded into the situation. They are influenced by certain ideologies and philosophies that led into their understanding as such.
Yeah.
But sometimes these people are influential, and sadly, many youths are influenced by them, by the way their appearance, or the way they talk, for example. So this is the challenge of our time,
of this current time.
Yes.
Man, it's very interesting we are entering into the age where we are witnessing so many kind of like
ideas and concepts.
Great thinkers, great thinkers. But the thing is, it's very important for us to be conscious about oneself. What do you think, Barak?
Yeah, for sure, man. Like, you have to know why you believe like this, who your teachers are, who are you basing your life understandings on. It's very important.
Sometimes you can get carried away. Sure, if you might be a top student of your cohort, right? The top 5%, and you think that you are the elites. That itself is the motivational factor for you to drive yourself. Oh, I can be a great thinker. I can be a great discovery kind of a personnel. I mean, this is something that I think we can look
I
into.
think as long as the person's motivation is for him to draw closer to Allah, it's fine. But if his motivation is just just nafs, then he's there's no real purpose to it.
But that is definitely misleading for if let's say he dwell into his nafs. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, something that but thank you, Ustaz, man, mashallah.
And that is also I think important thing in Islam, tazkiyah. Spirituality is very important. In whatever we do, always in Islam remind us about the importance of sincerity to Allah. That everything you do, you dedicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah is your focus and all these things. So all goes back into Islam, to surrender. To surrender to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam, as what Allah mentioned, inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin. But this is the biggest test for human beings. Because human beings are deluded because of his nafs. Human beings are deluded of his actions, of his beauty, of his wealth. We find in the Quran, Allah speaks about Qarun, about Fir'aun. They are deluded by the kingdom, they are deluded by their wealth, and Allah mentioned to us how Allah destroyed them. So we always have to reconcile, and we have to reckon ourselves so that we do not fall into the mistakes that they fell into. Even Iblis, the Satan, he's deluded by himself, correct? He say, Ana khayrun minhu, I'm better than Adam. How can I make sujud to him when I'm made of fire? He sees what you call it, his
own greatness,
superiority to Adam alayhi salam. So the Quran tells us, do not be deluded by yourself. Always surrender to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because at the end of the day, human beings are not independent. Human beings are dependent on Allah. And this is one of the things very important for us always to remind ourselves.
Especially for us, right? Just to sum things up, for us, living 21st century, we might be influenced by modern ideas and thoughts, but it's also very important for us to to come back and to realize, most importantly, is that Islam has every answer to every single thought that you think you have. It's not like something you don't think you're so special, like you think of something no one thought about. Actually, we thought about it already before. You just never search for it.
To reach that is very hard to reach to that self-realization.
For sure, man.
A lot of people out there don't have that.
We ask Allah to open for them opportunities to learn it. I think
as what you said just now, a lot of people out there are still clueless of where you have reached your point, to have that self-realization. It's important,
very important. Thank you so much, Ustaz, for today.
Thank you so much, mashallah, Ustaz.
There's so much more that we can discuss.
We should.
Oh my God.
I don't know whether this episode should be on like a 2.0.
Actually, to be honest, I have so many things I want to discuss also, but constraints of time. Like we will go very far on topic.
Since we have never really communicated with our viewers, for those who have questions also regarding on the topics, please do fill in your question on our Facebook live chats and also on our YouTube channel. Inshallah, we will post your question to Al-Fadil Mukarram Ustaz on the next episode. Inshallah.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much.
Jazakumullah khair.
Mashallah.
Thank you very much.
Inshallah. So inshallah we will see you
Al-Fadil
guys.
Al-Mukarram. Assalamu alaikum.
Nice. So we will see you guys on the next episode. Signing off from Coffee Ustaz. I'm your host Indra Sahib.
I'm Mubarak Shah. Thank you so much, guys.
Assalamualaikum.